Welcome back into the Ohio MMA Podcast. I am your host, David McKinney. Joining me on today's show is Mr. Asher Frederick. How you doing, Asher?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. So you are on the home stretch to camp for your fight upcoming at OCL 29 on May 18th, fighting Victor Guarriello. I know I- we just chatted just briefly before we came on, but man, you sound like pumped after training. That's I feel like guys are usually like drained after training. Is that how you normally feel, or like what's you get like too much energy? You didn't train hard enough?
No, I think it's just my willingness to be competitive. I think that what sets me apart from a lot of guys is I know there's work to do, and I look forward to the next day of training. Like tomorrow, I'm getting up at like 6 a.m. and going straight to jujitsu, then going to work, and then jujitsu again after work, and then nogi. You know, so I'm happy that I'm on this journey and I'm constantly evolving as a martial artist, and that's what keeps me amped, really.
Yeah, yeah. So Josh Williams at Ronin must not have done too much clinch work tonight, then, right?
Oh no, we did a lot of that shit. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot more energy than I would after clinch work, man. That's impressive.
Hey man, just it just shows how hard I work.
Yeah. So man, so you're returning to the cage. You had your last fight back in March. You had an impressive win. But let's talk about the upcoming fight. Victor Guarriello, a veteran of the sport. How you feeling about the matchup and getting to fight for OCL again?
Obviously, I look at this matchup, I'm treating it as he's an elite level fighter. I mean, he's been around the sport for since I was fucking in middle school. And I mean, he's fought the who's everybody from Cody Garbrandt to Aleko Pointer. So he's obviously fought at a high level and high level competition. And I think that this is going to be a really good fight. I think that this is actually going to steal the show. I don't think the Jaden Maddox and whoever the fuck he's fighting is even going to be entertaining. I think people are really just going to come watch me and Victor beat the dog shit out of each other for 15 minutes. And I think they're also going to come watch Max and Dom Johnson, which I don't even think that fight's going to be close at all. But I think me and Victor are going to steal the show, man.
Yeah, so you mentioned Aleko Poinar. I know I saw you were out training with him out in Vegas. You got to go out to spend at least part of your camp out there with him at Xtreme Couture, and that was actually Victor's last fight. Aleko, beat him. That's got to be a huge advantage for you going in to a fight and being able to train with a guy who just fought the guy that you're fighting him, and I'm sure that he has some great pointers for you. But talk about being able to train in Vegas and being able to train with Aleko specifically.
Training with Aleko, obviously, he's a super high level wrestler. He's been a lifelong martial artist, and he's a really intelligent fighter. He's not just one like a lot of MMA fighters. We're fucking stupid, and we want to just get in there and bang and beat the shit out of each other. But Aleko is a very intelligent, fighter. He studies all the finer aspects of the games and translate them all and the key details and elements, like myself and Josh Williams and Max. So it's nice to go with like-minded athletes, you know.
Yeah, yeah. How was Vegas out there? I'm sure it's not super hot yet, but how was the training out there? Did you feel like because I know I talked with Max Metzger actually earlier today, and he mentioned it was like a whole different level, and it gave him so much confidence in going in and training with UFC level fighters and guys who have you've been there and done that, and it's a different level of like every single person there is a pro full-time fighter. And did you feel like the level was a little bit higher, and I'm sure you were able to hang with all those guys out there?
Obviously, it's a higher level. The altitude definitely makes a difference, but it just fortified my mind because going there and a couple years ago and training with David Vorak, and I was able to see that level. And now I can see that I'm starting to get to that level. I'm able to compete with these guys day in and day out, you know. So that's what I took away from it. It's about, I mean, these guys obviously they're in the UFC and shit like that, and they're full-time fighters, so they can train all fucking day. So
Yeah.
obviously that does helps their progression. but I know that I can get there. It's not this unattainable level that everybody acts like it is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a great point, and like that's got to be a huge, like I said, confidence boost of a guy who I don't think you lack confidence anyway, but that's kind of feel like I think validating at least to get out there. But the thing I was looking at and looking at your record, you're 3-1 so far, and it's interesting kind of following the journey of your career so far. It's been you fought your pro debut, you fought Hasib Khattab, a guy that I know you had a lot of respect for. The second guy you fought, I know you did not have a lot of respect for, and
No,
Chris
fuck that
McKinney.
guy.
But then I briefly chatted with you before your last fight with Marquise, and I know you said you had a lot of respect for him as a guy who's been around for a while, and Victor I know also as a guy who's been around for a while. Do you feel like it's a do you get up more for guys that like that you dislike, or do you get up more for guys that you know I respect this guy? Like what's the mindset and the difference of like going into like just literally the guy standing across from you? Is it easier to get up for like, hey, I want to smash this dude, or is it easier to get up for like I respect this guy and I want to go out and show that I'm at his level or way above him?
Honestly, man, for me, it doesn't matter who you are. My goal is to go in there and take your soul. I'm not going there to fight. I'm going there to hurt you and break your spirit, and I want to feel you break. And for the motivation, I don't need any motivation. I'm one of those guys that just, if I wasn't doing this, I would be in jail, and that's the truth. I'm a fucking hothead and a piece of shit human being, but this is how I channel that. And I don't need to build up people in my head and be like, I hate this guy. Obviously, if you're like Chris McKinney, a bitch, and you talk shit and bring up dead family members and say you're going to bury them, obviously, I'm going to have a disdain and want to break your ribs and make you quit in front of, your whole gym, your whole friends and family. But other than that, I treat everybody the same. I treat everybody with respect, and it's just another guy in front of me. That's just the
Yeah.
reality of it.
No, no, I always think that's interesting because I know that the level of intensity from you is, I think, pretty much unmatched. And especially going into the fight, I mean, you seem like a guy who is pretty, cool, calm, and collected. And then you get out there in the cage, and it's like an animal's unleashed. And I've talked to Josh Williams about that a couple times, and he's like, Asher just has this like level of intensity that is bar none, like above anybody else like that I've ever seen. And it's interesting, like that's what fascinates me with fighters is that a guy can be you know not that not that because you said your head case and and things like that, but the level of intensity and being able to reach that inside the cage is it's impressive, man. And it's like it kind of fascinates me of like how you are able to channel that. Like is that something that you think about and that you use to your advantage? I think the obvious answer is yes, but how do you use that to your advantage of like that level, keeping that level of intensity?
Um, uh, I treat it like I know that you're gonna break, and I know that when I'm training, like obviously with Josh, Vitor, Aaron Boggs, Max, and all my other teammates, we push ourselves so hard that we know when people are about to break. Like I know that if I'm gonna break, you're probably gonna break before me because fighting, everybody gets it. It's all physical and this and that, but I mean, it's really mental because it's like if you watch boxing or like any high level fighting, it's just being patient and just poke like Adesanya. He just pokes and prods, and then when it's time to kill you, he just kills you. It's quick, ruthless, and efficient. So I mean, that's just that.
Yeah, I feel like after your last fight, one of the things I remember right before the fight, you posted. I think it was either a short video or a picture, and you just said "smash time." And I feel like in that fight in the third round, you just turned it on, man, and it was smash time, and you won the fight with some vicious ground and pound. I mean, it was nasty. Like whole other level. And I mentioned that to you after the fight, and I was like, man, that is smash time. And I feel like I missed an opportunity to change your nickname to Smasher instead of Asher. I know you already have a nickname. I've been wanting to give somebody a nickname for a long time, but how do you feel about that? Because I feel like the Smash Time Smasher, I feel like it's marketable.
Man, it is marketable. I've actually had that nickname for years at Ronin. Some Lance Phillips, OG of the sport, he used to come up to me all the time and call me Smasher. In middle school, people would joke, be like, it'd be Ash of the Basher or Ash of the Smasher. I like it though. It's a catchy nickname.
How's the your real nickname though is Shock and Rock? I don't think I've asked you about how you got your actual nickname. Where's that? What's the genesis of that?
So the genesis of Shock and Rock is I shock you with my speed and I rock you with my power. Obviously, a lot of my finishes as a pro have just come from me smashing people with ground and pound. But I've dropped or I broke Chris McKinney's ribs with a body shot and sat him down. The fight that I lost, I dropped the guy. My fight with Hasib, I hurt him a bunch on the feet with body shots, and that's why he was so hesitant. But I was also able to open up my striking in those fights because of my wrestling. But I haven't really shown my true abilities on the feet ever. I feel like, I'm constantly on this journey of evolving as a striker, as a grappler, and overall just as a martial artist. And I can't wait to show that in this fight.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that the biggest thing is the people think you talk about striking and striking for MMA, and I feel like you are the most vicious when you get up in that the kickstand position, in someone's guard or past the guard, and that's where you're the most vicious striking. That's a something to be said too, of like having the striking from there, but also being composed and not tiring yourself out and not gassing yourself, because a lot of guys do that and they're like just throwing punches that are hitting the guy's arms and stuff like that. You don't throw punches that hit guys' arms. You pick your shots, and it's a whole different game, right? It's an opponent who is on his back, who clearly is going to be trying to cover up and not necessarily always throwing a lot of return, and you got to find and pick your shots in a different way. But I feel like that's a sort of one of the more underrated aspects of the sport, of like, hey, being able to have striking for MMA and ground striking, whereas you're not just necessarily looking for submissions, but you're really looking to try to, as you say, smash a guy. It is a very like throwback style, and it reminds people of like Mark Coleman, Tito Ortiz, the early days of the sport, where people were like, holy shit, like that's a whole other thing that we didn't realize you could do. And that, like, when there are a lot of the jujitsu guys who wanted to try to pull guard, and then you get these wrestlers in there and they're just getting hammered on, and it's like, oh, this changes the game, right? Like it's something where I feel like you're kind of a throwback, but also in a modern sense, like you have a very well-rounded game. Is that something that you kind of think of as your game? I mean, I know that being the flashy striker on the feet is something that's pretty, but I mean, the fans didn't seem to be too upset at your last performance with the ground and pound.
Well, the thing is, like, you get like guys who can wrestle, and they just become like lay and pray wrestlers. I could take you down and submit you, but I want to hurt you and break your spirit. Like, I don't give a fuck if I submit you. Cool would be like, oh shit, this guy has submissions, but I don't care about the submit. I want to hurt you and break your spirit. I want to see you break. Like, I want people to know that you broke and that you quit, opposed to just being submitted. Because you can always be like, oh, he caught me, yada 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 yada. But if I take you down and I beat the absolute dog, you can't say anything. You can't say, motherfucker just took me down to hump my legs, or fucking took me down to submit it. Nobody gives a fuck. People want to see violence, and that's what sells.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I feel like that's easy, well said. Um, so looking at the kind of the bigger picture, and you're a 125 flyweight, which is honestly one of a lot of people's favorite divisions, and because it's like the speed of the fights is usually a lot faster. But is that something that you look at? Like, and I look at now flyweight in Ohio and kind of the surrounding areas, and there's so many like up and coming guys at your weight class. There's you, Josh Pereira, Ben Williford, Anthony Jagel, Jeff Ofak, your teammate Skylar Bray, Luke Chokan, who he's 0-1, but also got Mason DeLess out in Pittsburgh. So many guys at your weight class. Is that something that you look at and think like, oh, that's a lot of guys for me to fight? Or do you really not pay attention to a lot of the guys in your weight class kind of around the same area?
I mean, yes and no. I'm gonna just be honest about that. I mean, there's guys that I'm like, okay, I could see myself fighting, but I want to fight the best guys. And to be honest, I mean, besides Josh Pereira, who I cross train with, so obviously we're not going to fight anytime soon. I mean, we've had that conversation, him and I, because we're boys, we're friends.
Yeah, maybe on a video game.
yeah, our video game, we're like in the UFC for $1 million.
Yeah.
But I look at everybody's so obsessed about being the best in Ohio. Fuck that. We need to build the sport of MMA in Ohio. Like, we need to make Ohio like a hub. That's how I look at Ohio and people in this area. Personally, I want to, because you can beat people's asses in your fucking hometown, but if you can fly guys in from out of state, this and that, from across the country to come to your hometown to try and take your head off and fight and kick your ass in front of everybody that that's better. That's more of like to get up in the morning and
yeah,
it's more respectable, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like Ohio, has had like times where there's been, hubs of like where it was the kind of the regional capital, like, back in 10 years ago in Cleveland when Stipe Miocic and Jessica Ai and all those people were fighting. And it's interesting to look to now and following regional MMA so close that I do, like you see these pockets, right? Like Kansas City has a great, regional scene. And it's like, and people will go and travel there and move there to be able to train with the gyms there. And they have great promotions. Albuquerque, New Mexico, Vegas, of course, is another area. Milwaukee is another one. And I feel like Ohio could definitely be similar to that as well. And we have so much talent in the state. And I look at like just the level of like amateurs and the, the pros that are coming up. I'm like, people that are in the sport now through the pandemic, it's like, it's maybe not the number of fighters, but the quality of fighters is way higher than what it has ever been. Like there aren't that many fighters who are not like true fighters or the people who just want to go and test their water. It's like every single fighter coming up through the ranks is a legit tough guy. Is that something that you see? Like I know that you're training at Ronin, which you guys have had, a very long history, but like I know you do a little bit of cross training as well, and I know you've trained at I think Immortal, and I know you've trained at Stout over in Pittsburgh and Strong Style in Cleveland. Do you kind of see that like the maybe not as many fighters, but like the level and the quality of fighters, even like the amateurs and the people who are just getting started in the sport is a different level than what it was even 7 years ago?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the game's constantly evolving. Even when I started, MMA was 20, 25 years old at max. And now the sport's 30 years old, 5 years in difference. And I mean, the sport's constantly evolving. And I think fighting is always evolving. There's always new things to learn. But yeah, no, I mean, the athletes that are coming up now, myself included, we're different. We're smarter. We have more brains because we've seen the older generation and we've seen what's worked and what hasn't worked. And then we can take what has worked and adapt it into our generation and then use our generation to evolve. And then the next generation after my generation will look at my generation and take the stuff that still worked for me, that worked back in the fucking 90s and early 2000s, and bring that and more tricks. I mean, yeah, I guess like what I'm saying is everybody coming up now is just going to be a killer.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And that's something I tell people in the sport now. Like I watch fights and from all different areas, and the the fighters are like, oh, this guy's 0-0, but he was a Division II national champion wrestler, All American or something, or even he's just like he comes from a legit gym who they're not going to put somebody out there that's not ready to fight. It seems like every single event or show there's another couple of guys that are like, wow, this is a new guy that's impressive. So I think the sport is definitely continuing to evolve. And like I said, but I think when I started in this, which is I got gray hair, it's mostly on the side, so you can't see it. But when I started, it was like, man, there's so many fighters and like 120 events in Ohio in a year, and it's like, but the quality of fighters is just a whole other level now. So that is something that I continue to look at. But yeah, man, I'm super excited for your fight. I love to get to call your fight. I feel like as you mentioned, you never put on a poor performance, and it's always a fantastic fight. And this was my pick to actually steal the show, but you said it before me, so maybe now I gotta pick a different fight. But I still think you and Victor is going to be a great fight, and I think the level of talent. I said this to Max earlier. This is probably the best pro card that I think OCL has put on in quite some time. With yourself, Jaden is fighting Max Metzger and Dom Johns. I think that's a really interesting fight, and then Melvin Harris. And it's a little something for everyone, right? Like you got the wrestlers, you got the strikers, a little bit of grappling, and the veterans, and then a handful of amateurs and debut guys as well. So I'm excited for this card, man, and I'm excited to see you come back out. And the performance that you put on in March, like I said, it was impressive, and it was I think I don't want to say vintage Asher because you're not old or anything, but it was like that's the performance that I think that that you were like made to have, right? Like, did you feel that way? Like that was like, or I'm sure you always, and I would not be
No,
surprised if you said that you weren't
yeah,
happy with the performance, but I feel like that was like the picture perfect. If I wanted to show someone an Asher Frederick fight, I'd be like, here is what this person is. Here's what Asher is as a fighter, and that was what made me so excited about it.
yeah. I I wasn't happy with it because obviously I made stupid fucking decisions that somehow he got on my fucking back, but that's because I fucked up with a certain position. But yeah, I had to overcome just a little bit of adversity and show people that like no matter what, I'm not gonna stop fighting. I could be literally fucking in a triangle about to go to sleep, and if I think I can pick you up and slam you or run you into the cage and to get the fuck out, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna. I'm a fighter at heart. I've been through a lot of shit in my personal life, and it's like nothing is gonna break me because I won't allow it. I'm not gonna, oh God, I'm getting, jabbed. I'm circling way too much, this and that, eating a few leg kicks. But he broke because he thought I was just gonna roll over and quit. Because everybody, like Marquise especially, he tried to punk me before the fucking fight, and he's like, "You know what time it is?" And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up, bro! Like, I don't care what you think you're gonna do because after the first round, when you realize that you're not gonna put me out of there, and that I listen to my coaches, and that I'm coachable, and I'm not fighting with my ego and my dick, I'm fighting with my brain." You're going to break because I'm going to sit there and look at you and just walk through everything you throw at me because I'm not scared. Skylar Bray, that's my best friend. And if you've seen Skylar Bray fight, there's no reason that guy should hit as hard as he fucking does. There's just no human. But all the years that I've went with him, we're beating the shit out of each other from Terry Green's basement to 2 weeks ago at Ronin. He's the hard, still to this day, from 145 pounds and under, nobody hits that hard. Yeah. So I know if I can take that anything somebody my weight throws at me, I'm going to walk through.
Yeah, we need a Skylar Bray sighting, man. It's been I think almost a
Yeah.
year since he fought. I know he did I think he's not 3-0 in boxing, but his fight against Gabe Perea, that was that was probably my favorite fight from last year. And those two guys, just you could see like I'm not gonna lose to you like level of just like dislike.
The fucking grit and toughness, bro. That dude is
Yeah.
Skyler's fucking insane, bro.
Yeah. We need to get him back in the cage here pretty soon. So put in a good word.
I got you.
But yeah, man, thanks so much for joining me. I know May 18th, OCL 29. Anything else you want to mention? I know I always give people the opportunity.
And yeah, just like to shout out to all my sponsors, and everybody that's been my training partners that supported me and helped me out. That's really it, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, we gotta update your picture on Tapology too. You're too
Yeah.
you got your fresh face on that one. We gotta you got the
Yeah, I don't look the same,
little bit
man.
longer hair. Yeah, I think that was definitely from your amateur days.
That was
I'll
for
get
my
it up.
first fight.
Oh, really? That was your very first fight?
Yeah.
2019. Yeah, you were definitely fresh faced then. So you were
Yeah.
like 20 years old. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get that updated for you. But yeah, May 18th, OCL 29. Check it out on combatsportsnow.com. I will be on commentary for the fight. Great fight card. Of course, Asher said he's going to steal the show. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, man, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back next week with another episode.